What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got some awesome information for you guys, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And we're starting off with some big sales numbers from across the world, from Japan all the way here to the US. We've got the Famitsu sales for the past week, and something happened that just shows a complete domination when it comes to Nintendo, something that you don't see very often, especially with the Japanese sales, but in this generation with the Switch, you're seeing it here. And that is in the top 30 sales for Japan. Nintendo Switch had 29 titles in the top 30. There was only one game that's not on the Nintendo Switch in the top 30, and that is the PlayStation 4 version of Outriders. Every other game, from Monster Hunter Rise at the top with another 194,327 units, all the way down to number 30 with the eBaseball Powerful Pro from Konami at 1,324 units. It was pretty much a wash for the Nintendo Switch. And it's something, like I said, I've been looking at these sales numbers for almost a decade now when it comes to back when they had it as the Media Create, and then that went paid. Then we all migrated over to the Famitsu sales because we can just still get those numbers for free every single week. And it's very impressive to see. Now, this does not include digital sales numbers, but at the same time, I mean, if you're looking at the actual sales of the Switch, obviously that probably leads it in Japan too as well. So very impressive there when it comes to the Japanese sales. And like I said, something that we don't really see too often in generations ever since I've been covering since about the PlayStation 3 era, the Wii era, and on, right? So the 7th gen. So incredible to see on that front. But I do also want to mention the hardware sales as well. It seems like there's definitely shortages going on that we see with the PlayStation 5. Sony is shipping way more units to the US, which we'll talk about why they broke a pretty cool record. But it seems like they're just trying to get that all there to the US, which makes sense when it comes to like the biggest market in the world. But Nintendo's distribution when it comes to Japan and Europe and the US has been absolutely crazy. But it does seem like there are a few shortages with the regular standard Switch in Japan, which has caused Switch Lite sales to spike up just a bit, because at the number one spot for hardware, it was the Nintendo Switch with 48,733 units for the past week. Then right below it was the Switch Lite with 47,526 units. So usually we see the regular Switch kind of beat out the Switch Lite by a bit more than that, but there are some shortages, so therefore it's causing Switch Lite sales to kind of spike up a bit more, especially with Monster Hunter Rise. That's looking like a super evergreen title in Japan, especially with that portability, portable Monster Hunter built for the Nintendo Switch. That is a combination for success in Japan. But even if you look at the top 10 here, a lot of the legacy titles, a lot of some of the smaller games as well. You've got like Human Fall Flat and Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, Fitness, Boxing. It's good to see a variety of different types of Switch games kind of littered all over the top 30 there. Yeah, Nintendo's just kind of dominating with it. But the PlayStation system, PlayStation 5, or the systems I should say, PlayStation 5 and the digital edition of the PS5 did sell 15,560 units. And to be honest, the Xbox Series family, I mean, they're barely shipping anything there, but it sold 571 units. So overall, pretty bad on that front, but they are having severe chip shortages, like especially with Xbox. I'm not sure what's going on, man, but there are no Xboxes because all the Xboxes are selling out, but they're getting kind of cooked by Sony and Nintendo when it comes to the monthly sales. Pretty bad. So I'm not sure what's going on. Hopefully Microsoft can do something, because they could be selling a lot more systems if they just have them in stock when it comes to the US. But let's go ahead and shift over to that, because this is very interesting to see the NPD sales. Everyone's always interested in those when it comes to the US here. And this is always interesting because they have it to where some games are counted as digital in the sales, some games aren't. So Nintendo's first party games, Nintendo does not give the software digital sales numbers. Nintendo will not necessarily give us those, but they will include them on their own sales reports. But the NPD does not get access to those numbers, so you have to keep that in mind when you see the top 20 sales right here for the past month for March. So very interesting to see Monster Hunter Rise in there at number 2. Very good. Call of Duty, obviously on a multitude of platforms, it's Call of Duty, so it was the number 1 spot there. But seeing Monster Hunter Rise kind of get in at that number 2 spot is very cool. Outriders in at number 3, not bad as well. Also, Super Mario 3D World over there at number 4, and you guys can see the rest of this list here. Mario Kart 8 actually jumping up more positions, and like I said, it makes these things more impressive with Nintendo's games because they're not including digital sales, and they're still in the top 20 sales numbers here. But one more thing that I also wanted to point out here is Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time. That was number 65 last month, and the Switch version has been selling extremely well. Okay, if you look at Amazon, it's up there in the top 10 all the time. It's been in those sales charts since it dropped. So the Switch version actually boosted all the way up from 65 all the way to 15. So very good there, very good there overall. So not bad when it comes to the software sales, but when it comes to the hardware, Nintendo Switch was number 1 on there. Very cool to see that. And also, real quick, one more thing with the software sales. It's very cool to see Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild still there. The first game, pretty much, the launch title, still there in the top 20 and actually moving up spots from before. Pretty cool there. But let's talk about the hardware sales, because Nintendo Switch was the best selling hardware platform for the month of March, both in units and dollar sales. Remember, the NPD does separate the two when it comes down to it, but in the first quarter, the Nintendo Switch was the unit sales leader, while the PS5 was the first in hardware dollar sales. So overall, obviously you have those two models, one at 500 and one at 400. Overall for the quarter, it was PlayStation 5 with the dollar sales amount, but when it comes to actual hardware number of sales, Switch was the top there. But for March, just for March in general, it was also dollar sales with the Switch. So kind of interesting to see how it's laid out there, but hey, it is that. One more note here, the PlayStation 5 is the fastest selling system in US NPD history in unit sales and also dollar sales, because Sony is gearing up everything for the US with all of their units. The US is getting the most shipments, so they're able to supply that. But it's interesting because you barely ever see them, but that just goes to show you how in demand the PlayStation 5 is. You never see it, but they're actually selling fairly well. They're selling very well when it comes down to it, but that leads to shortages sometimes in Europe, obviously, or not even sometimes, big shortages in Europe. Pretty much no units being shipped to Japan. Very, very small shipments being in Japan. They're kind of loading up, going all in on the US, and it's definitely working for them, and they're able to get that record there with it. So interesting on that front. Also, Spider-Man Miles Morales. That game's interesting that I want to talk about probably in a separate video because it's pretty much already kind of cooked The Last of Us Part 2 and some of Sony's other games that came out when it comes to it. And it just goes to show you, it's like, man, like, they must be a little bit upset with those sales of The Last of Us Part 2 if Spider-Man Miles Morales is outselling it by a good amount here. But we'll have to wait and see what Sony says, or if Sony ever even addresses exactly where The Last of Us Part 2 is in sales. So what are your thoughts on all of this, guys, when it comes to the NPD sales and also when it comes to the Famitsu sales with the Switch kind of dominating across the globe? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, and I also wanted to talk about this as well because Mario Kart 8 is now the best-selling racing game of all time in the US. Best-selling racing game all time in the US. And now I've seen plenty of people now say, well, wait a minute, since Mario Kart 8 is selling so well, that means Mario Kart 9 doesn't have any chance of coming out anytime soon and all of this. And I don't know if this is like exclusive to Mario Kart or if this applies to all of Nintendo or all of the Switch. And I completely see where some of these people are coming from. And when people say this, completely see it, right? It's selling so well. What's the point? You know, they could just wait or whatever it is. But is this same logic applied to everything? So like, it's not applied to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because at the time that the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 was announced, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was still killing it across the board, and even still to this point, Breath of the Wild is still one of the top selling games across the world, whether it's Amazon sales or it's Japanese sales. It's in the top sales charts, whether it's the US NPD, and they still announced Breath of the Wild 2, right? They still got that going, even though I think even at the time, it was still the best selling Legend of Zelda game of all time 2 years ago or something like that. So the fact that they still announced that, it seems to me like, I guess people are just picking Mario Kart, but there's been other games, like let's just say Pokemon. That game is still selling very well, and they announced more Pokemon games. So maybe it's just like a Mario Kart thing. I'm guessing because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is like the biggest game outside of pretty much like Animal Crossing, or it's like right up there, the two biggest games on the Switch. So they're thinking it's been so long, we haven't seen it, so that's the reason why. But I don't know. I don't know if that's exactly the reason why we haven't seen Mario Kart 9 just yet. I think it's more that Nintendo is trying to get that install base to the prime opportunity community, then release Mario Kart 9. And I would guess there might be something that we see, which I've talked about before in videos, something that we see maybe this year or next year, and they just release it, and then of course it can sell on the next generation Switch or whatever else that they do. But I personally think that they're just kind of getting it ready. I mean, they want that big install base to be there, and when it does come out, they can sell legitimately 30 million copies, or almost the total that Mario Kart 8 is at right now, pretty much in the first month, because the install base is just so large. And you also have to factor in that Mario Kart 8 is being bundled in with the Switch every single Black Friday, so that's also bumping up the sales as well. But overall, I see what some people are saying. I'm just not so sure if that is going to be the case. And I think we also need to wait till E3. I think there could be some pretty big surprises at E3. Maybe we get a Mario Kart 9 announcement. Maybe we get that at a direct later in the year, which Nintendo had a big direct. They announced Splatoon 3 and other games like that. So I do feel that Mario Kart 9 could still be announced. But I might be wrong on that. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe everyone else is right, or people that are saying other stuff are right. But we'll see. We'll see. Nintendo's always full of surprises. But I also wanted to talk about something else too, because it kind of ties into what I discussed with FZero and Star Fox and stuff that I've talked about in my live streams, and that is Nintendo and how they stated recently, or at least an ex-Nintendo designer said that FZero isn't dead, it's just hard to bring back. And that kind of sent people into a little bit of a tizzy online. You know how fans can get when they don't get what they want for 20 years or something like that, or at least the vocal minority of fans don't get what they want for a long time. They start getting upset and start saying like, hey, there needs to be this, or they can just do this, or why don't they just do this, or they can make this. I mean, I've seen so many ranges of opinions in terms of what they should do. Some people just say, hey, they should just bring back FZero GX and put it in HD and put online multiplayer and then just release it and that will do great. Or they should just make a game where Captain Falcon gets out of his car and he's like Grand Theft Auto or something like that, which I've talked about. They can reboot it that way. But let's talk about what Takaya Imamura had to say recently when he spoke with IGN and his 30-year career at Nintendo, and he said that FZero GX is the ultimate F-Zero game in his opinion. And then he also said that the FZero series has been quiet for a while, but it wasn't because of lack of trying. They said, quote, "Of course, I've thought about it many times, but without a brand new idea, it's hard to bring back." He stated, he also said that the F-Zero series just isn't dead, even with him no longer being at Nintendo. So here's one thing that I do want to say with this. Like, I get the fans, you know, when it comes to F-Zero. Me, I thought F-Zero was cool, but I've never been crazy about F-Zero. I think what we see online with so many people, you know, yelling about where's F-Zero and all this stuff like that, and then when it comes time to actually pick up the game, they're not there. F-Zero has never been a franchise that has been extremely popular. Despite how good F-Zero GX is, nobody showed up to buy that game. And even though that it did over 1 million units, a lot of it was with the yellow label over the cross saying player's choice, because the game did not do gangbusters at that full price back then, which was $50 for the game. People just weren't buying it. So I don't think it's anywhere near as popular as people try to make it seem to be online. But I do feel that if they did bring back F-Zero GX, or if they did bring back a new F-Zero game, I feel that it could get the Switch effect, kind of like Pikmin 3 got it with the boost, you know, whereas Pikmin 3 Deluxe is the best selling Pikmin game of all time. So that's a good thing, right? So I do feel that stuff like F-Zero or stuff like Star Fox, for example, people brought up that those could get a nice Switch boost if they just bring back some type of basic, you know, F-Zero type of game or basic Star Fox type of game. But we'll see. I mean, we got E3 coming up. I think some people are a little bit too quick to kind of jump the gun, but it's been 18 years plus, right? We did get Star Fox Zero, but that game obviously wasn't good enough for fans, and it was a retelling of Star Fox 64, so some people want something new. But also, if you look at it, Star Fox Assault didn't necessarily do that great either. I mean, they put that game out there, a brand new Star Fox game. It was pretty much what people would want from a Star Fox game, and yeah, not a lot of people bought the game. You know, it didn't do as well as you would have thought. Nothing has ever reached what Star Fox 64 reached, which is why I think Nintendo wanted to kind of reboot Star Fox like 64 in a way. It's like, hey, well, people still love that game, and that's pretty much the best-selling one, so let's see if we can kind of retell it and see what people want. But obviously, you have like the Wii U gamepad control, stuff like that. People didn't like that, so we'll see what they do going forward with Star Fox. We'll see what they do going forward with F-Zero. Do I feel that they need some type of big grand idea? Yes. In order for this franchise to actually be something to where Nintendo can invest in normally and we get normal games, like there needs to be something that pushes it above what F-Zero GX did, in my opinion. Now, they can release an HD version of the game and all that, but a lot of the fans are going to be like, okay, they're going to buy it, they're going to play it and say, okay, I already played this, right? I want something new. And so then the pressure for them to put something new out is going to be there. So I do think that if they did bring back F-Zero, it definitely needs to have something. I do feel that racing games like this necessarily aren't very popular overall. Like the futuristic racing games like Wipeout and stuff like that aren't super popular. People are more in line like with like the Need for Speed or the Burnout or like Gran Turismo or Forza, or when it comes to Nintendo, just Mario Kart, right? People kind of more like that. And F-Zero is a hard as nails racing game that doesn't attract a lot of casual audience. So there would need to be something in order to get more people in, but we'll see what Nintendo does with it. Maybe they can just release a straight up F-Zero game and see what people think about it going forward. I'm not really sure, but we'll see what happens. E3 is coming up. Nintendo is kind of rebooting or bringing back Metroid. That's one of the games that people have been asking for. That's coming back. We might get some other Metroid type of things. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of it plays out and what Nintendo decides to do with their second half, and also games for next year as well. We got E3, and we also probably got like another Nintendo Direct and maybe some more surprises here and there. So what are your thoughts on everything that we discussed here when it comes to Mario Kart 8? Also, NPD Sales, F-Zero. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all the latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.